All right, ladies and gents. What I'd like to do with this one is kind of compare how each of these different fasteners work. What we've got here, and I've got them lined up for a kind of reason. I've got just a plain old impact, hammer drill, regular drill, hammer drill, and another impact. And what I'd like to do is highlight how these all work differently, what the options are and what they can do. So what I've done is I've just kind of started a whole bunch of just basic, that's not it. Which ones did I grab over here? Just a bunch of, they're just 1 3/4, I think. There's nothing long. So each one is, I just started it. That's all I did, just because I'm doing this one-handed. So what I did was, each one of these, at least of these three, each of these three drills is set up a little bit differently. And then the impact, we're going to finish with, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I want to run this one in here and just kind of like show why we use that for something big instead of that's probably not the best one. So first one is on the top here. The impacts are pretty straightforward. There really isn't anything else that you can do with it. It's just the only thing you really got is you just got a trigger and forward and reverse, and that's it. If you spend a little bit more money, I went a little bit cheap. This one is my own. There's a little speed selector here. I saved a few bucks, and I don't really know why I haven't missed it, except for I've got a little sticker here instead of a switch. So this one is just set to, you got your options are set right here. So this that looks like a drill, basically that means that it has no clutch and it's just going to go. So we're going to run that first one and just kind of show you how this one works. Line it up and set it in there and just and she'll just go. Basically, it's operator's control on that one. So what I did with this next one is it's basically the same thing. You're gonna notice that they're the same vintage. There's still kind of that old one. They still got the 18-volt lithium ion that you can't get anymore. It's just that old. This one has a shifter, I don't know if that's really the right word, but I had that one in, I would call it low gear, first gear. It just slows it down. We're gonna do it for similarity, we're going to do the same thing. But notice up here I've got this one set to little indicators between the 13 and the 15, which would mean 14. And you can see on the side it's got the same options similar to what you see there. That one has a little drill and a picture of a hammer, and then it goes to 1 and kind of goes all the way around. The one I've got in my hand, if we go to that same point, has the drill but no hammer. And you're going to notice that there's a couple other differences. This one has the band. It's got a little extra metal here where you can put that a handle goes on it, and you notice that the chuck is made out of metal and this one's made out of plastic. So that gives you some indication that this one probably has a little bit more capacity and has a few more options, and that has everything to do with that little hammer there. So what we're going to do is we're going to run the second one, and you're going to notice that this one is a little bit different. It just runs. And then it just starts popping, which basically means that that's as far as it'll go. I can sit here and just notice that screw is not moving anymore. So basically what this up here is a clutch. And once it reaches a certain point, and this actually is coming out pretty nice. You notice that is pretty close to, well, perfectly flush. So if you're going to be doing this repeatedly and you don't want to think, which is kind of nice. If you're doing something repeatedly, it's nice to have the machine make the decision for you. You just set that one to whatever the clutch is, and it's a little bit of trial and error. It depends on the wood, depends on the moisture, depends on the battery. All those things factor in, but if you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, just use the clutch and just set it, and once it starts slipping, just be done, because I think you can wear that out. This one is one of our new ones, and this one I've set to hammer. And this one is a little bit different. It's a little bit different setup on this clutch. Again, this is the old one. It just has this one dial plastic collar that you turn and it goes all the way around. This one kind of has, almost looks like a 2-stage, right? You pick this one to whatever you want, and if you set that one there, then you can start playing around with There you go. That one starts turning, but basically we're not going to mess with that. What I want to do with this one is, this is to hammer drill, and we're not going to do it. I'm going to show you what happens when we use it. Normally use this if you're going to go through masonry. So for example, if we wanted to drill a hole in there, so if you're going to do something like, you know, running screws into cinder block or anything like that. So these types of fasteners, all of those get done with a hammer drill, and to kind of see what this does. It really doesn't swing like a hammer, but it kind of has a little bit of a characteristic like a hammer. So this one, you go, it goes fast, and it is. I got this one for the speed. I don't even see that it's at 2, which is mid speed, but this one will just keep going. But what you're hearing is, and that one, you know, that one went down to China. Basically, it's just a total pain in the butt to use if you're running it in wood or metal or anything like that. If you're going to run in concrete, it's kind of handy. Basically, there's a lot of impact. You can see this one has the, I can't really see it there, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of a big deal right there. Like, if you see anyone using it, it's like, oh, he's got a hammer drill. Well, it's also heavier, and you can't really see that, but comparing these two, this one's got a little more weight, but this one's got quite a bit heft to it, but you can also see the amount of metal that's on it. That's an indication. If you do use the hammer drill, this is going to get quite a bit of heat, and that's an indication of what's going on inside. So this is the one that I generally prefer. So I put these two side by side because these are the ones that are currently available now. And I'll put it here, and that'll work better for the light. You can see that the size of the impact, what I call that, an impact driver versus the hammer drill, it's just a lot lighter. That's why this one has the belt loop. You don't want to have this thing hanging on your belt. It's going to beat around your ankles pretty soon. So this one's pretty nice. It's got a lot of power, variable speed, obviously. So that just means if you want to go really slow, you can, but then once it gets to a certain point, it just starts hammering. And that one also will pretty much go down to China. Now, the nice thing about something like this is it is really nice for running, you know, these big construction lag screws that we did. You notice that one just started impacting right away, whereas with these little screws, it just spun it like a normal drill, and then once it gets to a bigger, you know, that's I don't know, 6 inch or so, 6.5. That's got some pretty aggressive thread on it. It's punching a much bigger hole, and it's much longer. So that's one of the reasons why you want to have a collection of tools, because each one does something different. Could you do it with let's see, just this one? Yeah, you can do pretty much everything you want with this. This is nice for drilling. You can run fasteners, etc. This is kind of a nice one, you know, the hammer drill, if you're ever going to mess around with you know, running anchors in concrete or putting fasteners in cinder block, whatever. But it's just nice to have options. Each one of them does something different, and each one has its own strength. So when you guys come back to the shop, and you'll see that we're using a lot of different fasteners. They'll all work. It's just some of them have a few other tricks up their sleeve, and then some of them have some limitations as well. So that's the end of this lesson on which driver does which.